Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Surely not. It cannot be the seasons of mists and mellow fruitfulness already. I think it is, though, rather terrifyingly. Do not panic, however, because we are here to brighten things up a little bit. It is the best in modern and contemporary jazz. Jumping in with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome to this week's show. And yes, in the blink of an eye, it's all over, bar the shouting. Summer holidays behind us, it's all downhill to the big C via Halloween. And hopefully there's a good supply of moots this year and not too many interloping pumpkins. So, H, on the subject of seasons, are you still salivating over the hot sounds of summer, or are the cool and muted sounds of autumn and winter popping into the playlist with perhaps the odd fireworks?
Well, yeah, I've got the odd firework. I'm going to freak in with Dave Douglas, a favourite I haven't heard for a while, an old one, or a new old one, singing drums. Another singing drums, didn't even know there was one. And unusually for me, a new release by a vocalist.
What? We'll never hear such a thing. And for me, we come from the source, we borrow a bass line, we block and groove. And to start, no shuffling please, here's Alban Darche with Le Gros Cube 2 à la boogie. La Boogie from Breton saxophonist and composer Alban Darche with a band of 18 top musicians from 4 different countries. A veteran himself of the renowned French Orchestre National du Jazz and John Hollenbeck's large ensemble. Darche has no fear in his orchestration with regards to U-turns and style changes. However, he still has an ear for a good tune, and I think I probably hear a little bit of Kenny Wheeler influence in there too. And in the track we just heard, it was him playing that great sax solo. Le Gros Cube 2 is in fact maybe a false title, as his large ensemble has constantly evolved to the 17-piece we hear here, including well-known names such as John Irbegon on alto and Jean-Paul Estevignat on trumpet, released in 2021 on Alban Darche's own Yoke Records. Le Gros Cube 2, well worth digging out.
Yoke Records, yeah, good name for that, Yoke Records. Going from Yoke to Intact. The label, that is, not just an intact CD case, which is pretty rare these days. Pierre Favre, now I've been listening to him for a long time. He's been knocking around on the European scene since the 70s. An artist, I believe, as well as a master percussionist, playing both in the classical and jazz spheres, and often in the solo percussion environment. Not everyone's cup of tea, I grant you. But I certainly really enjoyed his 1984 ECM album, which was called Singing Drums, particularly as it featured one of my favourite all-time drummers, Paul Motion, along with Freddie Studer from ECM fame as well. I think he played with the group and various other Red Twist and Tuned Arrow, another fantastic ECM album as well, and Nana Vasconcelos as well doing percussion. I didn't know, though, there was another singing drums album. He kept the name for the group and brought another album out a little bit later on a separate label, Intact. This is it, cropped up in the second-hand track the last time we were down at Ray's. I'd seen it before and it was still there. I thought, well, it's obviously meant to be. I should check it out. It's really rather good, but somewhat different, as it features wind as well as the title of it, Souffler, which is to blow, I think, or to whistle or blow, or wind passing in the air suggests. Here they are, in any case, on a track called Felix Dancing in Own Space. enjoyed this album, actually. It was one of those sort of speculative buys. You thought, well, it could be good. I did enjoy the first one, but this one had horns on it. You think, is that singing drums or is that singing horns? I don't know. But that's the way he's gone with it. He's taken the name Singing Drums from the first album in 84 and then kept it for this album recorded 3 years later at Saint-Germain for Intact. And kept the name, but basically shrunk the group down. So Freddie Sturder, Paul Motion, None of Us Can Chill Us. None of them actually with us anymore, of course, though they were still in 1984. And put these horns in. So two of the four instruments are horns. And the group's concept, as it says in the notes, is essentially rhythmical, with the quartet condensed to become the two percussionists, Pierre Favre and Lucas Nijli, who I don't really know. Great percussionist through the 60s as well. So give him a shout out. It's Pierre on percussion, Lucas Nijli on percussion as well, and the saxophones of Roberto Ottaviano, who you do hear cropping up from time to time, and Michel Godard on tuba and serpent. I don't know if you'll see it anywhere. Like I said, it was an odd pickup, but you'd probably find it if you like that sort of stuff second-hand somewhere online. And it's just called Souffle, Pierre Favre with singing drums.
I do have another Michel Godard on Serpent, actually. You should add that to the list of unusual instruments playing jazz. We maybe should make a spot for that. Now, next for me, an album that made it onto many of the top 10 lists for Album of the Year last year. Admit I didn't get a copy myself until this year, however. It could well have made my list too. The Seventh Hand from saxophonist Emmanuel Wilkins. This is his second album for Blue Note, his first Omega released when he was just 21, established him as one of the ones to watch, and the maturity of his second release is staggering, really, taking risks left, right and centre and weaving in and out of the rhythm around a flexible driving pulse with the full freedom for all the members of the ensemble to make a statement. Here's Emanation. Yeah, a bit of a surprise ending there. Emanation from the second release of the Emmanuel Wilkins Quartet. Mika Thomas on piano, Daryl Johns, on bass, and Kweku Sumbri on the drums. Not forgetting the powerful tenor of Emmanuel Wilkins. Within a few short years and 2 albums, this band has become the band that members of the young generation can measure their own ideas up against. I think the Seventh Hand is on Blue Note and is really worth the effort to dig out. As long as you don't expect easy listening, you won't be disappointed. The abrupt ending, incidentally, is only because the track segues into the following number on the album.
Yes. Always a catch, that, isn't it? If you have a suite where they just sort of segue through. Bit tricky. Should be fading. Fading, I suppose, is the answer. Anyway, there we go. It is Jumpin In, Chris and myself, H. And no, I don't make any secret of the fact that I'm not a massive vocalist fan. I mean, I do like the classics, Ella, obviously, and Billie Holiday, and more recent times, Karen Crogue and Norma Winston and the like. But generally, the jazz vocal doesn't do a great deal for me. I think we're of a kin on that one, and there's a lot of jazz around, and we know in the minority that most people, you stick a vocalist in and it doubles the audience. However, there we are. That's the way life goes. We all pays your money, it takes your choice. One man's a meat and all the rest of it. That said, there are some fine voices and plenty of vocals come our way. And one we have seen before live is Alana Dooney. She's got a new one out on ECM, which came out in June. She, I think, is the half, I'm right in saying, of Rob Luft, the guitarist, who's on the album as well. And it's very contemplative, as you can imagine. And she does have a crystal clear voice and the great advantage of singing in different languages as well. Here she is on a track called Evasion.
Et je serai face à la mer qui viendra baigner les galets, caresse d'eau de vent et d'air et de lumière, d'immensité. Et en moi sera le désert, n'y entrera que ciel léger. Et je serai face à la mer qui viendra battre les rochers, giflant, cinglant, usant la pierre, frappant, s'infiltrant, déchaîné. Et en moi sera le désert, n'y entrera ciel tourmenté. Et je serai face à la mer, statue de chair et cœur de bois, et me ferai désert en moi, qu'importera l'air sombre ou clair. Et je serai face à la mer, et me ferai désert en moi, qu'importera l'heure sombre ou claire. Face à la mer, statue de chair et cœur de bois, et me ferai désert en moi,
You know, I rather like that. I haven't heard all the album yet, but what I've heard I've rather enjoyed. For a vocalist, she does have a crystal clear voice, soft but really beautiful diction, really clear, and pinpoint accuracy on the notes as well, I think. And yes, can sing in several languages, singing in French there, as you probably gathered. Time to Remember, it's a continuation of the group that's been going for some time. They did acclaimed album, their first one, Lost Ships, a few years ago. Same group, guitarist Rob Luft, Alana's other half, Matteo Michel on flugelhorn, and Fred Thomas, who does doubles up on percussion and piano as well, talented chap. And they've sort of grown more familiar, as they do, working together. Alana says it's a reflection of our shared passion for musical storytelling, going beyond genre and language. And after several years touring together, the slightly unconventional lineup now sits very comfortably with us and has its own singular world of sound. This feels like the most cinematic album I've made to date. It does sound cinematic, I'd agree with her there. Every song suggesting a different film. It's certainly a very visual sort of music. You could easily see this with a visual on it as well, and the video and deserts and changing sort of arenas. They are very much inspired by nature and the changing world, and Alana and Rob spent some time out in the Sinai Desert, and a lot of the originals are sort of inspired by this time out there, with references to the Red Sea and desert climates and nature in general. It came out in June. It's on ECM. Time to Remember, under Alana's own name, Alana Dooney.
In fact, we did see them at the London Jazz
duo,
Festival.
I think, wasn't it?
We did indeed. And could be just, of course, that it sounds sexier when sung in French. That might be something that's grabbing you. Now, next from me, Leeds-based band Wandering Monster, with their second full-length album on Ubuntu Records. The band's led by bassist and composer Sam Quintana, who penned many of the original tunes on the album, but the one we're going to hear is Jaco Pastorius's Encole y Trompa. The mesmerising Onkonkole E Tromper from Wandering Monster. This is a confident young band who've grown in confidence from their debut album, serving the quintet of Ben Powling on tenor, Calvin Travers on guitar, Richard Harold on piano, and Tom Higham on drums, not forgetting Sam Quintana on the bass. They've developed a vocabulary all of their own and a sound, I think, which is as comfortable as it is edgy. Hope we may catch them live soon. Zena is on the Ubuntu label, and thanks very much to Rupert at the Dynamic Agency for sending us a copy.
Ah, indeed. It's Jumping In with Chris and H. Time to freak in.
Hi, this is Dave Holland. I just want to let you know you're listening to Manx Radio. The show is Jumping In with Chris and H. Hope you enjoy it. Keep listening.
There we go, a little twofer for you there with a word from our main man, Dave Holland, in between, who, of course, supplies the tune and the name for this programme, Jumpin' In, from his classic late 70s, early 80s album, I think it was, somewhere around about there. So first off, we had the wonderful Dave Douglas, one of the most prodigious man on the jazz circuits. He seems to bring out about 2 albums a week. The amount of stuff he churns out, unbelievable. And like Miles Davis, every new album seems to be a different direction, or at the very least he might do 2 albums in the same direction and then shoot off in another direction. This was his mid-80s group Freak In, which had a who's who of some fantastic lineup with Dave on trumpet and keyboards, Jamie Saft on keyboards and loops, Mark Ribot there on guitar, Joey Barron on drums, Brad Jones doing baby bass, Ikwe Mori on electronic percussion and laptops, Seamus Blake's there, Chris Speed on saxes, Craig Taborn. Yeah, you get the gist. A whole host of A-listers playing, recorded in New York in 2002. I think he only did 2 albums with that band. And then later on, about sort of 15, 20 years later, he had another electronics band, which was very, very good. Trying to think what they're called, not Close to the Edge, but they did 2 albums as well. And then he moved on again, and I'm not quite too sure what he's doing now, but they just had a big sale on Greenleaf, his label, I should say. After that, Walter Smith III, his latest on Blue Note, Return to Casual, which features Walter himself on tenor, Taylor Igisti on piano, Matt Stevens guitar, Harish Raghavan on bass, and Kendrick Scott on the drums, and also I think features on that one James Francis on Fender Rhodes, and it's also Ambrose Akinmirezi on trumpet on a couple of tracks as well, but not that particular one, which is called, I'm missing something here, it's called K8 plus by BYU dollar. K8, buy your own, bring your own dollars. No, am I missing something? K8 plus BYU $sign. There we go. Make of that what you will. It's on Blue Note. It came out earlier this year, and saw him live, as we often said. It wasn't very good, but the albums are generally excellent.
And in fact, new albums from nearly all the people in that list under their own names as well, including a very fine one from Kendrick Scott. Well, that's just about it for this back-to-school edition of Jumpin' In, but we have got time for a track from Deadeye, one of the myriad projects that UK pianist, organist and keyboardist Kit Downs fits into his undoubtedly busy schedule. They can't readily be easily pigeonholed, but their style crosses many boundaries, verging between jazz, rock, blues and even rock, all with a distinctly jazzy infusion, featuring Kit Downs mainly on organ, Rainer Bass on guitar and Jonas Bergwinkel at the drums. Along with the decidedly left-field golden age of steam, this trio is among Kit's more groove-laden ensembles. See you next week with more great finds and favourites, and don't forget you can always drop us a line at chriskane@manxradio.com or howardkane@manxradio.com. Here's the title track, Deadeye.
It'll be hop Juné before you know it.
It will indeed. Right near.